He forced my head down, in front of everyone. The hall erupted with laughter. Even my mother just watched. No one stopped him. His grip tightened in my hair. "Look at them," he whispered. "Look how they watch you break." I didn't cry, not when they mocked me, not when they cheered, because none of them knew what would happen before sundown. None of them knew what I truly was. The moment he forced me to kneel, he didn't win. He doomed them. And by nightfall, the hall that laughed at me would cower in fear. Chapter 1. They laughed. The sound crashed against the stone walls like a storm that refused to end. Loud, cruel, endless. My knees pressed into the cold marble floor, the chill biting through the thin fabric of my dress. His hand was still tangled in my hair, forcing my head down, forcing me to stare at nothing but polished stone. My reflection stared back at me, small, powerless, broken, exactly how they wanted me to look.
"Stay down,"
he murmured, low enough that only I could hear.
"This is where you belong."
More laughter erupted around us. Somewhere to my left, a goblet struck the table between bursts of amusement. Boots scraped. Chairs shifted. The entire hall watched like it was a performance. And I was the entertainment. I searched the crowd once. Just once. And I found her. My mother stood near the high pillars, wrapped in silk and silence. Her face unreadable. Her eyes distant. She did not move, did not speak, did not stop him, not even for me. Something inside my chest cracked slowly, like ice spreading through water. Good. Let it break. Let everything break. His grip tightened suddenly, jerking my head back just enough for me to see the hall again. The nobles, the guards, the servants pretending not to stare.
"Look at them."
He whispered near my ear.
"Look how they enjoy your fall."
My scalp burned where his fingers twisted in my hair, but I made no sound. I didn't understand why he was doing this. No, that was a lie. I understood perfectly. It was all so he could be with her, Rowena, the woman he truly loved. But if he wanted her, he could have simply left me. He had no obligation to stay. He could have ended it. Walked away. Instead, he chose this humiliation, this spectacle, this lie.
"Rootless woman!"
Someone shouted,
"Monster!
"Heartless!"
The crowd roared, feeding on the story they had been given, Rowena's story. His story. Their truth, not mine. I had tried to speak once, tried to defend myself. They didn't care. Why would they? Who would they believe? Rowena, the beloved healer who could do no wrong, or me, the girl they had always called weak, useless, a powerless Omega? Especially when the Alpha's son, my husband, stood beside her, confirming every lie she spoke. His silence alone would have condemned me. But he did not stay silent. He spoke against me. Every word from his mouth struck harder than any blow. Calm, certain, convincing, as if he truly believed the story he helped create. As if I had betrayed him. As if I had destroyed everything. The crowd listened, hanging on his words, drinking in every accusation like truth handed down from the gods themselves. And just like that, my fate was sealed. I lowered my gaze again, staring at the cold marble beneath me, at the distorted reflection of the woman they thought I was. Weak, powerless, nothing. That was what they believed when they looked at me. What they had always believed. what I had allowed them to believe. The truth was, I might be an Omega, but I was more powerful than everyone in this hall combined, more powerful than any of them could ever fathom. But I could not reveal it. Not yet. There was a reason for that. A dangerous one. I was snapped out of my thoughts when another figure entered the hall. Rowena. She looked the perfect picture of innocence. Her long pink hair fell gently over her pointed ears, carefully hiding the mark of her Fey ancestry. She smiled shyly as the crowd turned toward her with sympathy and concern. Slowly, delicately, she walked to his side. "Taven," she said softly, her voice trembling just enough to sound fragile.
"I'm not hurt anymore. Please, let her go. I'm sure she didn't mean to kill the baby. She only wanted to teach me a lesson."
A collective gasp swept through the hall. To them, she sounded merciful, kind, gracious even after the terrible crime they believed I had committed. But I knew the truth. Every word she spoke was carefully chosen, twisted just enough to make me sound even worse. And it worked. The crowd erupted again, shouting, cursing, condemning me louder than before. Taven, the man who was supposed to be my husband, turned toward me and stepped forward. He was not angry. I saw it in his eyes. He knew the truth. But he also saw the crowd, saw their rage, their blind loyalty, and in order to keep his lie alive, he played his part. His hand struck my face. The sound cracked through the hall.
"You evil, spineless Omega."
He snarled, loud enough for all to hear.
"I swear by the Moon Goddess and the Fey Lords, I will make sure you suffer for killing my child."
I frowned slightly at the irony of swearing to the Fey Lords. I kept my face still, my thoughts silent, and let him continue believing his lie. For a brief moment I saw it, a faint, fleeting smile on Rowena's lips, before she quickly hid it, lowering her face and forcing tears to spill down her cheeks.
"Taven, stop, please."
She cried between broken breaths.
"I deserve it. I deserve it for sleeping with you. You're a husband after all. I should have never done such a thing."
The hall fell into shocked murmurs. It sounded like confession, like guilt, like sacrifice. But I knew what it was, an act, and almost as if it had been rehearsed. Taven turned to face the crowd, his expression hardened, voice steady and convincing.
"I told her I did not wish to remain bound to her, but she would not let me go. Her obsession would not allow it. I begged her to separate peacefully because I did not want to hurt her. But who could have known this monster would attack Rowena?"
He paused, letting the tension thicken, letting the crowd lean into his every word.
"And now,"
he continued coldly,
"the child that was mine is dead."
A wave of anger surged through the hall. The crowd nodded in grim agreement, some hissing in rage, others staring at me as if I were something vile, something beneath even an Omega. If my head were not throbbing from the pain Taven inflicted, I might have rolled my eyes. It was so obviously a lie, such an elaborate performance, and yet every single person in this hall chose to believe it. I wanted to speak, wanted to say, I didn't do it, but it would have been useless. Everyone loved Rowena. They loved her because she was powerful, because she was half Fey, a bloodline revered in this world. The Fey were seen as superior, gifted, closer to ancient magic than wolves ever could be. To them, being touched by Fey blood was a blessing, a mark of destiny. And Rowena carried that mark beautifully. Not to mention her healing magic, rare, potent, invaluable. She was an asset to the pack, someone worth protecting, worth believing. And if there was one thing this pack, this world, valued above all else, it was strength. Power, usefulness. Everything they believed I was not, so my denial meant nothing. My truth meant nothing. They would never choose me over her, not when she shone like light. And I had spent my entire life pretending to be nothing more than shadow. Chapter 2. The crowd was still shouting in fury when the great doors suddenly opened, the sound echoing sharply across the hall. A heavy, suffocating pressure swept through the room, thick with authority and raw dominance. Alpha Kiro, Taven's father. He entered slowly, each step deliberate, each movement commanding. The moment his presence filled the hall, the crowd fell silent. One by one, heads lowered, bodies bowed under the sheer weight of his dominance. I bowed too, pretended to feel it, pretended to be affected. Dominance had never worked on me. How could it? When I was stronger than every single one of them combined. Still, I lowered my head, hiding the truth as I always had. Before anyone could speak, Alpha Kairo's cold, stern voice cut through the silence.
What is going on?
Taven stepped forward immediately, his expression hard, controlled. Then he pointed at me.
She killed my child, Rowena and I's child.
The hall stirred with murmurs, tension thickening once more. For a moment, Alpha Kairo said nothing. His gaze remained distant, unreadable. Then his voice came again, low, heavy, and edged with anger.
I warned you,
he said to Taven.
When you chose to marry this weak, pathetic thing, I told you she was not the person you believed her to be. Yet you defied me.
His eyes flicked briefly in my direction, cold and dismissive.
And now, look what she has done.
I frowned slightly, my thoughts stirring. That statement was strange. Taven had been the one who pursued me when we first met, relentless, insistent, almost obsessed. He used to say how much he loved me, and how I would be the one to bring him everything he had ever wanted. But why? What had he seen in me back then? I hadn't told him what I truly was. I couldn't tell anyone what I truly was. So why had he pursued me so relentlessly? Of course, before this incident, I believed he truly loved me and was simply drawn to me. But after everything that has happened, and after the statement his father just made, I couldn't help but wonder if he had hoped to gain something from me. And this person Alpha Kairo spoke of. Not who you believed her to be. Had Taven mistaken me for someone else? Or... Rowena lowered her head as if in sorrow, though I did not miss the faint tension in her shoulders, the anticipation. I did not know why he bothered to say, if it was true, as though he intended to investigate. I was already doomed. My suspicions were confirmed when Alpha Kairo's voice cut through the hall once more.
You have taken the child of another, and for that, the same shall be done to you. You will be marked with the moon goddess binding.
My head lifted slowly. I had not expected that. I had expected the whip. I had expected my wolf to be stripped from me. I had expected exile. I had even prepared myself for execution. But not this. The moon goddess binding did not simply punish, it condemned. It severed the life bond between a mother and any future offspring. Pregnancy would still be possible, but the child would never live. Life would be extinguished before it could even begin, a fate worse than death. I almost gasped in shock. The hall grew unnaturally quiet, as if even the walls wished to witness what was about to be done to me. 2 elders stepped forward slowly, calmly, as though this were nothing more than routine, as though I were nothing more than an object. Hands seized my arms and dragged me forward. My knees struck the stone hard enough to send a sharp jolt through my body, but no one cared. The cold floor pressed against my skin, unforgiving, while the entire hall watched in silence. No one spoke. No one objected. No one stopped them. The silver bowl was brought before me, filled with dark, shimmering ink, the sacred binding used only for irreversible punishments. One of the elders dipped his fingers into it, his face blank, emotionless, detached, as if I were not human, as if I were already gone. The first mark touched my skin. Fire spread instantly, not the kind that burns quickly, but the kind that consumes slowly, deliberately, as if savoring the destruction. A scream tore from my throat before I could stop it, raw, broken, humiliating. My body jerked violently against their grip, but they held me still, forcing me to endure every second of it. It felt as if something deep inside me was being ripped away, something fragile, something sacred. My breath shattered into uneven gasps. Tears flooded my eyes, spilling freely down my face, blurring everything. I could hear the faint murmur of the crowd, not sympathy, not horror, but satisfaction. The mark burned deeper. The second symbol was pressed into place. My body trembled uncontrollably, fingers clawing weakly at the stone floor, searching for something to hold on to, anything. But there was nothing. No comfort, no mercy, only pain, only humiliation, only the crushing knowledge that no one here cared whether I lived or broke. A faint sound escaped me, no longer a scream, but something softer, more fragile. A sob. The final mark was carved. This time, the scream that left me was not just pain. It was grief. Grief for something I would never know, for a life I would never hold, for a future stolen before it ever had the chance to exist. And still no one stopped it. No one spoke for me. No one cared. The elders stepped back as though nothing had happened. The crowd began to murmur again, cold, approving, satisfied, as if my suffering had entertained them, as if my loss meant nothing. I remained on my knees, shaking, tears sliding silently down my face, my chest hollow, aching, empty. They believed they had broken me, that they had taken everything. But what hurt most was not the pain, not the mark, not even the loss. It was the silence of the man who wanted even the loss. It was the silence of the man who once swore to protect me, the silence of the mother who would not even look at me, the silence of an entire pack who watched me be destroyed and did nothing. Chapter 3. I lay there in both physical and mental agony when Alpha Cairo spoke again.
Throw her in the dungeon until I decide what to do with her.
His voice was cold. Different. As though I were nothing more than a problem to be dealt with later. Rough hands grabbed me once more. I was barely conscious, barely able to move, my body weak, trembling, unresponsive. The mark still burned deep beneath my skin, a cruel reminder of what they had taken from me. I did not resist as they dragged me across the stone floor. My dress scraped against the ground, blood staining the fabric, my limbs heavy and lifeless. The hall blurred past me. Faces, shadows, whispers. But none of it mattered anymore. The further they dragged me, the colder the air became. The warmth of the great hall vanished behind us, replaced by damp stone and the faint, suffocating smell of rot and rust. Torches lined the corridor, their weak flames flickering against the walls, casting long, distorted shadows that stretched like grasping hands. We descended a narrow staircase. Each step jarred my aching body, pain radiating through me with every movement, but the guards did not slow. The deeper we went, the darker it became, the air thick and heavy, hard to breathe. The sounds changed, too. The murmur of the hall was gone, replaced by hollow echoes, the distant drip of water, and something else, faint, broken sounds. Whispers, soft sobbing. Chains shifting somewhere in the darkness. The dungeon, cold iron bars came into view, row after row of narrow cells carved into stone. The smell was worse here, dampness, decay, and old suffering clinging to the air. Some cells were empty, others were not. Figures curled in corners, unmoving, silent, forgotten. No one spoke as we passed. No one looked at me. As if pain was ordinary here, as if suffering was expected. They stopped before the last cell, the darkest one. The iron door groaned open, rust scraping loudly in the silence. Without a word, they threw me inside. My body hit the stone floor hard. Pain flared, sharp and unforgiving, before fading into a dull, endless ache. The cold seeped instantly into my bones, stealing what little warmth I had left. The door slammed shut behind me, iron against iron, final. The torches outside barely reached this corner. Darkness swallowed most of the cell, leaving only faint shadows dancing across the rough stone walls. The floor was damp, uneven, cold enough to numb. Chains hung from one side, rusted and unused, or waiting. The air smelled of mold, iron, and despair. I did not move. I did not speak. I lay there, curled slightly against the cold stone, trembling, breath shallow, the mark still burning beneath my skin like a cruel reminder that nothing had been spared. Above, somewhere far away, life continued. But here, there was only darkness, only silence, only me. The only people ever thrown into these dungeons were rogues. Traitors were usually executed. Rogues were left here to starve, to weaken, to fade slowly into nothing. Because of that, I was certain no one else in these cells was still alive. I could have stopped them. I truly could have. But if I had unleashed myself on them, everyone would have died. Not just the guilty, not just the cruel, the innocent too, the children, the weak, the ones who had done nothing wrong. They would all die, and something far worse would follow. So I did nothing, and now all I could do was wait to die. It is a terrible feeling, to possess the power to save yourself, yet be unable to use it without destroying everything, without destroying everyone back in my real home, my family. I could no longer remember their faces clearly, but I remembered who they were. My mischievous, playful brother, my strong, loyal father, my sweet and gentle mother, not the one who stood in that hall and watched me suffer. She was not my real mother. She found me when I was 12, near the river that separated the Fey Kingdom from the Wolflands. I was alone, hungry and cold, and she took me in. She gave me warmth, gave me a home. For a time, she treated me as if I were truly her daughter. For a time. Then something changed. Her voice grew distant. Her smiles faded. Conversations became shorter. Her warmth cooled, then vanished. I became something heavy in her life, something unwanted, a burden. Strange, because Taven had once loved me the same way. Gentle at first, devoted, then distant, then cold, then cruel. It could not be coincidence. Something had shifted. I searched my memory, pushing past the pain, forcing myself to remember the moment everything began to unravel. At first, nothing came. Then, a face, soft pink hair, gentle voice. Rowena. My breath stilled. It was when Rowena arrived at the pack. I wanted to continue to ponder the coincidence when I was interrupted by a scratching sound from the cell beside mine. I shot up, startled, my heart pounding as the faint noise echoed again. Slow, uneven, as if something was moving. but that was impossible. Everyone in this dungeon was dead. I held my breath, listening carefully. The sound came again, not loud, not frantic, just deliberate, a faint scrape against stone. My body tensed. For a moment, fear flickered through me, sharp and unfamiliar. Then I shook my head. I was weak, exhausted, burning with pain. My thoughts were clouded, my senses dulled. I was either delirious from the agony, or it was nothing more than a rat scurrying through the darkness. That had to be it. There was no one alive down here. No one. With that thought, I drifted off to sleep. Sleep did not come peacefully. It pulled me under slowly, heavy with pain and exhaustion, my body still trembling from everything I had endured. Tomorrow, I would try to find a way to leave this place, even if hope was faint, even if escape seemed impossible. I would not die here. Chapter 4. I woke to that same scratching sound. This time, it was louder, harsher, growing more intense with each passing moment. It scraped against the stone like nails dragged slowly across bone, relentless, impossible to ignore. My head throbbed as I forced my eyes open. The darkness of the dungeon pressed in around me, cold and suffocating. For a moment, I lay still, listening, the sound echoing again. Closer, sharper, deliberate. When I had just about had enough of the rat, I pushed myself up, ready to scare it away, to threaten it, even if it could not understand me. But I froze when I heard the creak of a door and the turn of a lock. Someone was entering the dungeon. I quickly lowered myself back down, forcing my breathing to steady. Then I heard the voice that had willingly betrayed me.
Oh, look, it's the worthless and weak Omega,
Taven said. I did not speak, because I was no Omega, at least not in the way he believed. My real mother had been an Omega who could not shift, but my father was something else, something far more powerful, and I had inherited that from him. Of course, no one knew that, so I remained silent.
What? You have nothing to say after deceiving me?
That got my attention. Anger flared sharply in my chest, the audacity of him. I deceived you? I said, my voice hoarse but steady. Me? When you and Rowena planned this whole thing, you lied to the court. You said I attacked her, that I killed the child out of jealousy. I paused, searching his face in the dim light. There was no child, was there? You staged everything. You made them destroy my womb. My voice broke slightly, but I forced myself to continue. Why? What did I ever do to you? You could have divorced me if you wanted Rowena. Why go this far? Why? Throughout my outburst, he said nothing. He did not interrupt. He simply watched me, a faint, cruel smile resting on his lips. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold, rehearsed, almost bored.
You want to know what you did to deserve it?
He did not wait for my answer.
What you did was be weak. What you did was fail to become the person I thought you were.
I stayed silent, confused. Again with that statement, become the person I thought you were. The same words his father had spoken. What were they referring to? As if reading the confusion on my face, he continued.
I was told by an oracle 10 years ago that a female, not of this pack or this kingdom, would be found at the Fey border. She would carry great magic, and she would be the one to make me the first Alpha King, the ruler of all packs. As long as I stayed with her and kept her happy, she would be the one to bring me everything I ever wanted.
I stared at him, stunned. There was no Alpha King. The Fae had one king who ruled their entire realm, but wolves were different. We lived in separate packs, each ruled by its own alpha, none stronger than the other. There had never been a king of all wolves. To become Alpha King, a wolf would have to surpass every alpha alive, something that had never happened before. Even as the thought settled, he continued.
When you came to the pack, months later, you were found near the river that borders the Wolf Kingdom and the Fey Lands. You were 12, so I watched you. I waited patiently until you were old enough. The reason I became so obsessed with you was because I believed you were the girl the Oracle spoke of. But I waited and waited for your power to manifest. I even married you, believing it would awaken soon.
His expression darkened slightly.
But when Rowena arrived, and I saw the strength of her magic, and learned she too had been found near the Fey border, I realized you were never the one the Oracle meant. The Oracle never saw the girl's face, never spoke her name. I had been wrong.
His lips curled faintly.
I was furious.
He continued, his voice quieter now, colder.
Years wasted. Years believing in something that was never real.
His jaw tightened slightly.
Do you know what it feels like? To realize you built your future on the wrong person.
I said nothing. His eyes hardened.
That was the moment I knew you were no longer useful to me.
A brief pause filled the cell.
And when something becomes useless,
his lips curled into a faint, cruel smile.
It must be discarded.
His gaze lingered on me, cold and satisfied.
So I planned it carefully. The lie, the accusation, the court, everything. You were never meant to survive it. And now, you will join all the dead people here. That is the cost of wasting my time.
He finished. I did not speak. I simply watched as he turned and walked away, his footsteps fading slowly into the darkness. The cell fell silent once more, heavy and suffocating. Shock held me still, not because I had not suspected betrayal, but because of how easily he had said it, how calmly he had admitted it. Years of lies, years of manipulation, years of pretending, all for power, all for ambition. I should have felt rage, but instead, I laughed. The sound was soft at first, weak, almost broken, yet it echoed strangely in the silent cell. Because what he did not know was that Rowena was not the true one. She was not the one who could make him the Alpha King. Her power barely scratched the surface. In his haste for power, in his impatience, he had thrown away the one who could have given him everything he ever wanted. Chapter 5. Something about all of this still bothered me. I had always believed Rowena only had distant Fey ancestry, perhaps from a grandparent, nothing more. But if she had truly been found at the border, then she was more than half Fey, barely wolf at all. So what had she been doing there? Years ago, I had been at that border stream for a very specific reason. But her? What reason could she possibly have? Unless she had been running from the Fey Lords, just like I had. My breath stilled at the thought. My father was a Fey Lord. The hierarchy of the Fey world is unlike that of wolves. At the lowest level are the common Fey, then the noble houses of each court. Above them stand the Fey royals, rulers of their individual courts. Above the royals sits the Fey king or queen, sovereign over all courts. And above even them are the Fey lords, beings of immense ancient power. To wolves, the closest comparison would be the moon goddess herself. But unlike the distant and unseen nature of the moon goddess, the Fey lords are not aloof. They walk the world in physical form. They act. They interfere. They rule not only through power, but through presence. And I was born from one of them. Eroben Fireheart, the Fey Lord of Fire. He had fallen in love with my mother, a wolf. In the Fey realm, even alpha wolves were seen as lesser beings. For a Fey lord to love one, to bear children with an Omega wolf, was an unforgivable insult to the other 3 Fey lords. When they discovered the truth, their fury was absolute. I was 12 the day everything ended. My mother, my father, my brother and I were home when the sky itself seemed to crack. The air turned sharp and freezing, then the ground trembled. They came without warning, the Fey Lord of Ice and the Fey Lord of Earth. Power beyond imagination filled the air, crushing, suffocating, unstoppable. They attacked my father immediately. No words, no mercy, only destruction. Each Fey Lord was equal in strength. 2 against would have ended him. I remember the sound of power colliding, fire against ice, earth shattering beneath our feet. My father fought like a blazing storm, but even he could not overpower 2 ancient beings at once. I was frozen in fear. My mother stood helpless, her wolf weak before forces older than the world itself. My brother trembled beside me. He had inherited my father's lesser gifts, glamour, shape-shifting, maybe teleportation one day, but nothing meant for battle. Nothing to save us. I had inherited fire, raw, violent, uncontrolled. I did not think. I did not hesitate. I only knew one thing. I had to protect him. And so I let it out. The fire did not feel like power. It felt like being consumed alive. It tore through me, burning through my veins, my skin, my soul. Flames erupted around me, brighter than the sun, hotter than anything the world had ever known. I heard my mother scream my name. I heard my brother cry out in terror. But the fire only grew. It spread beyond me, devouring everything in its path. The Fey Lords were immortal, so the flames would not kill them, but they would suffer. And suffer they did. Yet the fire did not stop with them. It swallowed the earth, the trees, the sky. It swallowed everything. If I did not stop, my mother and brother would die. I knew that, but I could not stop. I watched the other Fey Lords fall, their immortal bodies burning beneath my flames. Then my father fell too. Even he, born of fire, could not withstand the storm I had become. They were not dead, but when the fire cleared enough for me to see, my mother was gone. My brother was gone. Only ash remained where they had stood. Their clothes burned away. Their voices gone forever. I had burned them. I had killed them. My breath vanished. My vision filled with endless fire. I am a monster. The thought echoed again and again inside my mind. I do not know how long I burned. Time lost meaning. Pain became everything. Then my father moved. Barely alive, barely conscious, he saw me and began to chant. Ancient words, binding words, words older than flame itself. And suddenly, the fire stopped. Silence fell. He lifted me into his arms, weak, shaking, broken. And when I looked around, the world was gone. For miles, nothing remained but ash. The village, destroyed. Every innocent life, erased. Not my mother, not my brother, not the Fays who lived there. Thousands, gone because of me. And in that moment, I understood why I could never unleash myself again.